This is workshop 4. Everybody who doesn't want to be workshop 4, this is workshop 4. It's hosted by the Israel Project, and the workshop is dealing with the Palestinian culture of hate and advocating for peace. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Christoph. Heil. I'm the Director for European Affairs at the Israel Project, and I'm moderating this panel on educating for the future, comparing Palestinian and Israeli attitudes towards the other. Israel's former Prime Minister Golda Meir once said, "Peace will come when the Arabs will love their children more than they hate us." She understood how important education is for shaping real peaceful relations. I think what you will hear today from our expert panelists will both hearten and disturb you. This panel is hosted by the Israel Project, a non-profit educational organization that gets facts about Israel and the Middle East to press, public officials and the public. One of the Israel Project's most important and unique programs works to create the groundwork for a better understanding between Jews and Arabs. It is our belief that education should be utilized to encourage an attitude of tolerance, pluralism and democracy, and to promote peaceful means of solving conflicts. Our Arabic people-to-people peace program is responsible for getting facts and sources about Israel to thousands of Arabic language journalists in the Middle East and around the world. And we also communicate with tens of thousands of interested Arabs throughout the Middle East using the tools of social media. Our Arabic Facebook page have had over 17 million hits since its inception several months ago. Our communications with the Arab world is not just based on the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, but aims to educate Arabs about Israeli society, culture, values, and Israel's desire for peace. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers. Shelley Elkayam is an educational counselor, poet, and CEO of Impact SE. Impact SE means Institute for Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education. It focuses on textbooks of national educational systems across the world. It is dedicated to fostering peaceful relations between peoples and nations by helping them accept the other and reject violence as a means of resolving conflicts. Among her many affiliations, she is a researcher in the Department of History of Religions at the University of Göttingen, where she studies global interreligious movements for peace. She is a co-founder of the youth section of the World Conference on Religion and Peace and an observer in Europe on implementation of women's rights. To my right, Itamar Marcus is the founder and director of Palestinian Media Watch, one of the foremost authorities on Palestinian ideology and policy. Itamar was appointed by the Israel government to represent Israel in negotiations with the Palestinian Authority on incitement. He has presented analysis of Palestinian ideologies in academic, cultural and government frameworks, including hearings, lectures and briefings to members of US Congress and Senate, the Canadian, the German, Norwegian, Swiss, Dutch and Australian parliaments, and members of European Parliament. He is often interviewed by the global media. Now first I turn the microphone over to Shelley.
We have research groups studying both curriculums with experts on the languages, of course Hebrew and Arabic, and also religious experts in Judaism and Islamic studies, as well as linguistics, educational counselors, and this is the list of the International Board of Impact SE. As I said, this is the scope of our study. We monitor books based on UNESCO's resolutions in the area of peace education and of the UN resolutions on tolerance. Our fourth is actually our methodology that we monitored every curriculum according to the same standards. Our standards, as I said, are derived from criteria. I'm going to present you soon with the criteria. The first criteria is actually, we put it as a question: does the curriculum promote tolerance and peace? Does the curriculum develop the capability of nonviolent conflict resolutions? Does the curriculum promote peace processes, international understanding, and cooperation? Is the curriculum free of prejudice? We are looking for that as well. Are the educational materials coherent and updated and scientifically updated with the recent science? Does the curriculum include objective data, critical thinking? We challenge you here to look at our study. Well, I'm now looking for I'm fundraising for the ability to translate all the material that we gathered, which is thousands of pages, and then to edit them, and then to upload them on our website, as we do for each and every report that we make. So what we see in that, I'll start firstly with the Israeli research or findings, and then I will go forward to speak about the Palestinian study. So, Israeli curriculum is presenting Christianity and Christians and Muslim religious affinity to Jerusalem. There are many, many examples. We just picked up one example: Jerusalem, the city that is sacred to three religions. Israeli curriculum is teaching empathy to the Palestinian suffering. This is, by the way, a change, because even our own previous study of 2000 and 2002 showed that there is not enough empathy in the Israeli curriculum, but this has changed, even to the extent that 6 educational messages were monitored by us in the Israeli curriculum, where the Israelis teach the children about Nakba. So they teach the war has several names. Some use the term 1948 war, while the Palestinians call it the Nakba, i.e. the catastrophe. Another example on the Nakba is the War of Independence was called by other names reflecting different perspectives on the war. The War of Independence, the War of 1948, and the Nakba inside. Israel is teaching with a lot of respect about Islam. Islam is a monotheistic religion. Muhammad is the founder. I mean, we have more material, educational material about Islam in the Israeli curriculum than in any other Middle East curriculum. This is unbelievable. I mean, I had to read and double check it again and again. There is so much accurate, respectful information about Islam that you don't find it anywhere in the Middle East. So much about Islam. The Israeli, here goes, continues the data about the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians, how it started in the 19th century. And we can conclude and say that Israeli curriculum teaches respect to Palestinian Christianity and Islam. It gives it portrays objectively the Palestinian history. It gives respectful description of Islam and Christianity, and there is a presentation of Arab achievements. Now let's go to see maps. This is a map of the borders of Israel, and it presents also the areas A, B, and C according to the Oslo Agreement. As you can see, this is the Oslo map. And this is another map that is published recently in the new curriculum, where the areas, the Palestinian autonomy is described. So the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is presented as two nations in the Israeli curriculum fighting for the same land. Palestinian point of view is presented as well as its loss and suffering, such as the Nakba. Rationale is given to Palestinian actions, and something very surprising, we find in the recent Israeli curriculum an adoption, a weird adoption of the Palestinian narrative. The conflict regards the territories that the Jews call the land of Israel and see them as part of their homeland, while the Palestinian Arabs call them Palestine and see them as part of their homeland. This is an objective way of putting things. Admitting the legitimacy of the Palestinian national movement, so recognizing the Palestinian people, historical depiction of the Palestinian national movement, recognizing the Palestinian Authority and its territories according to the Oslo Agreement. I repeat, according to the Oslo Agreement. But some Israeli textbooks go beyond the Oslo Agreement and teach even things that are not in the Oslo Agreement, and that the Palestinians would wish to be associated as if as it was in the Oslo Agreement. And by that I meant there is an adoption of the Palestinian narrative. So here is an Israeli book. Another book quotes from the Declaration of Independence, where Israel pledges to give full equal rights to all citizens, Arabs, Druze, minorities. Israel will hold complete social and political equal rights for all its citizens without regard for religion, race, sex, language, and culture, and will keep the places holy for all religions. So the Israeli curriculum is emphasizing the laws and documents referring to equal rights of all minorities, objection and criticism of inequality towards minority groups, promoting knowledge and understanding of minorities, both by facts and by narratives. Now, I'm giving you some examples about the pedagogy, the didactics that is reflecting critical thinking, that is encouraging peace education. Like, when, in your opinion, will the long-awaited peace with the Arab state be achieved? So the child, the student, is challenged to think about when, and also the Oslo Agreement reflects the aspiration to put an end to the violent conflict between the Palestinians and us, and to open a new page of peace between the two people. So it envisions a new page, and then the child should draw the vision on that page. Now, here is one photo that is in a book, but it repeats itself in many books. The Oslo Agreement, September 1993. So let us conclude. Israel is advocating conflict resolution with the PA, aspirations for peace for the two people, encouraging critical thinking about war, favorable representation of past peace agreements, demonstration of the benefits of strengthening existing peace agreements, and presentation of future concrete plans for peace with the Palestinian Authority. So, Palestinian Authority textbook stress respect for others, particularly the elderly, disabled, and teachers and women. These are good news. We see now that girls are about the same size of the boys. This is a new phenomena, and women's rights and equality are extensively taught. This is for grade 2. Alongside traditional roles of women, that they have to educate children for active and passive roles in society. And this is stemming from tradition and customs rather than the true Islamic religion. Still, a testimony of 2 women equals a testimony of 1 man. The verse indicates that it is permissible to take 1 man together with 2 women as witnesses, that is, a testimony of 2 women is equal to a testimony of 1 man. This is, by the way, because of their women have faint hearts, easily break down, and they forget details. Israel is typically blamed for environmental problems. This is for grade 2. Israeli soldiers, always depicted as such. There is a denial of Jewish and Israeli existence, and what I would say illusionary geography. So Israel, there is no Tel Aviv here, if you know Arabic.
No.
And everything is Palestinian state. So this is quite the same as you saw here. And there is the map of the Middle East in geography, the geography of Palestine, but there is no Israel mentioned here. In the descriptions of the Levant, which is the Middle East, Al-Sham in Arabic, Al-Sham Levant includes Palestine, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. So there is no Israel there. And another example, the Levant presently consists of states of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. No Israel. And here there is, you can see with more details, it's a map of Israel with its neighbors. So no mention of the state of Israel. The Arab states neighboring Palestine, you can see the Arab states that are neighboring Palestine. And until last year, this was a map in mathematics for the 3rd grade with the Palestinian flag. Now the Palestinian flag is all over the state of Israel. That's for children who are 8 years old. And this is another exercise for the children who are 7 years old, grade 2. In this activity, they have to color the desert part of Palestinian state. That's the Negev, if you know the Negev. So they consider the Negev as part of the Palestinian territory, Palestinian autonomy. Erasing Jewish holy places. This report, by the way, is on our website, and you can read it fully. But a number of Palestinian, Arab, and Islamic centers working on the revival. This is a quote, by the way. What I'm reading now is not something that we wrote. This is a quote from a book explaining that a number of Palestinian, Arab, and Islamic centers working on the revival of Arab-Palestine tradition for the protection of Palestinians and particularly Jerusalem's Arabism. Published cultural publications defending Palestine and its traditions, such as El-Burak Wall. Now they give a new name to the Wailing Wall, which is Al-Burak. And they give also a new name to Rachel Tomb, which is Al-Bilal. Now why so? Because even the Palestinian territory has to explain to its own children why they change names. So they explain that they change names because of Islamic centers decided to change name, to Arabize the holy Jewish places, such as the Wailing Wall and the Rachel Tomb. No advocacy for peace. We did not find any advocacy for peace. No mentioning of agreement for peace. No mentioning of the Israeli and Palestinian committees working on water issues together. There is an indoctrination of jihad and martyrdom. I have to run. I'm told by my MC to run, so these are examples of jihad and jihad and jihad and another jihad with all the bloody descriptions. And this year there is something new. that we find not only jihad, but ribat. Ribat is an eschatological war. So ribat is a war that never ends, it goes forever. So it says for grade 12 that Palestine, the land of ribat and jihad, not only jihad, but also ribat. Now what is ribat? Ribat is an outpost of the borders of Islam where fighting the infidels occurs. So ribat is a war in the sake of Allah, but it's an endless war. Ribat is until the day of resurrection. If you know what it means, that it's a war that never really is going to end. So this is for grade 12. For grade 12. And we can sum up that the Palestinians' curriculum features an ongoing tendency, total denial of Israel and Jewish presence, and no individual Israeli is presented. Tel Aviv is not mentioned, no kibbutzim are mentioned in any of the maps, no Jewish nationalism is acknowledged, no Jewish Zionism is not acknowledged but as racism, no mention of tragic fate, of any incidents, war, jihad, ribat is advocated, classic anti-Semitism is still widespread in the books, no education for peace, and no mentioning of agreements. Much emphasis is put on women's rights, as I said, respect for authority, presenting environment, yet they blame Israel for any environmental issues, problems. No collaboration is reported. In short, much homework remains to be done in the area of peace and tolerance in school education at the Palestinian Authority. So I want to thank you very much.
By using the media really as a window to the totality of society. In fact, if we were naming the organization today, we wouldn't name it Palestinian Media Watch, we would call it really Palestinian Society Watch. Because when we look at the media, we're looking at really what's happening in the Palestinian world, and we study things like sporting events, cultural events, read the crossword puzzles that appear in the official papers, children's activities that children participate either within the framework of media or just social and cultural children's activities. And we blend in research of Palestinian school books, some of which we've done, some of which has been done by others. And all of this gives us a holistic sense of what's happening in Palestinian society, a holistic view of the messages that are being sent by the leadership. We're not focusing on issues that aren't connected to the leadership. And more than that, in today's presentation, and what we've been focusing on lately is not what's going on in the Hamas. You're not going to see one example today from the Hamas. You're only going to see the mainstream Palestinian Authority, Fatah, and that's why it's critical. The messages that you're about to see, which many of them remind you of the Hamas, you'll see they're coming from the mainstream to Palestinian children. Now, I mentioned we study sports, and I want to give you a few examples. What we could, before we get into the basic ideology, what could we possibly be finding in the sports pages of a Palestinian paper? And here I'll give you an example. Sports has been used with hundreds and hundreds of events in the Palestinian Authority named after some of the worst terrorists who've killed the largest numbers of people for many years. And I'll go back a few years. Here was a football tournament, a soccer tournament named after Abdul Basir Deh. This was in the school system, under the Ministry of Education. Abdul Basir Deh was the suicide bomber who blew himself up at the Passover Seder, killing 31 Israelis. We've also had in the sports pages finding things like summer camps named for Wafa Idris, who was the first woman suicide terrorist. And this past year, there was a football tournament named for Wafa Idris as well. And when this tournament was announced, it was very interesting. This was the website that announced it. It actually included, if you can see here, UNRWA. So that UNRWA was sponsoring this organization, which in the end had this soccer tournament. In the end, UNRWA denied responsibility, said they weren't funding anymore. In any case, on the advertisement announcing the Wafa Idris tournament, you actually had the UNRWA site. And one of the things that we've been documenting in parliaments around the world, to governments around the world, is that they don't really know what's happening with their money. And sometimes, with the best of intentions, their money is going promote violence, promote hatred, and especially to be promoting role modeling of terrorists. Now, What I want to focus today's presentation are what the quartet sees as the critical issues that the Palestinian Authority has to fulfill in order to even undertake a peace process. And I'll just give you the words of Hillary Clinton, who was quoting the quartet's principles in the United States Congress, and she said, "We will only work with a Palestinian Authority that accepts the quartet's principles," and she defined them: commitment to nonviolence, recognition of Israel, and acceptance of the roadmap, which talks about also cessation of incitement. Today's presentation is going to be built around these three issues, that the quartet will only talk with the Palestinian Authority if they fulfill these. These are not final status. These indicate that the Palestinian Authority is a peace partner. Stopping violence is not final status. Stopping violence means you're a peace partner. Recognizing Israel means you're a peace partner, and stopping incitement. Then we can get into discussing borders, discussing water, discussing the critical, but these were seen as the preliminary issues. And I want to show you in Palestinian broadcasting what we see about the society, that this is not the case at all. Now first of all, before I show you the first item from Palestinian TV, I'll point out Palestinian television is owned by the Palestinian Authority, controlled completely by the Palestinian Authority. That recently was announced by the Palestinian Authority that they would set up a public body to control it. It hasn't happened yet. It is still completely run by the PA. In fact, the person who runs it comes from the office of Mahmoud Abbas as well. So now I want to show you, the Palestinian Authority is committed to recognizing Israel. This is a documentary that they've run on their television dozens of times since 2007, including just 1 month ago on Palestinian TV. Oops.
الساحل الفلسطيني الممتد على طول شاطئ البحر من قطاع غزة وعسقلان في الجنوب إلى حيفا في جبال الكرمل، فحيفا ميناء فلسطيني شهير تمتعت بمكانة عالية لدى العرب والفلسطينيين بشكل خاص قبل أن تقع في أيدي الاحتلال عام 48 و900 وألف. ثم إلى الشمال منها نجد عكا، وإذا ما سرنا إلى الشرق من مدينة عكا فإننا نصل إلى مدينة ذات تاريخ وأهمية، وهي مدينة طبرية بجانب البحيرة الشهيرة المنسوبة إليها، وهي بحيرة طبرية. يافا مدينة ساحلية عريقة، وهي عروس البحر وبوابة فلسطين إلى العالم.
Of course, Jaffa is part of Tel Aviv. It's Palestine's gateway to the world. The significance of this video, if this documentary would have been on even one time, it would be significant. But it's been on dozens and dozens of times now for over 4 years on official Palestinian television. And this is just one example of an educational framework. Now I want to show you a cultural event. This is a cultural event of the Fatah party. And you'll see in a moment the singing and the dancing and the clapping. Sitting in the front row, you'll see in a moment Palestinian leadership, and listen to the identical message coming through from the Palestinian leadership.
يا هلي يا هلي يا هلي يا هلي رجع لك يا طهر تربي يا أرض الأحرار محمد طولي يا الغربي رجع لك يا طهر رجع حتى ما طول الساحل مع بيسان تضرب بلادي صورة عن جنة
It talks about all of Israel here, Rafah, Harosha, Nikra, Beit Shan, the east and the west and the east. Everybody's clapping, everyone's singing in the presence of the leadership of the Palestinian Authority. This is the message that comes through in all frameworks. I'll give you dozens of examples. I want to quickly go to children's education, children's programs on TV with the identical message. And we have, again, hundreds of examples like this where children are taught to see a world without Israel. This is one recent example. Okay, same cities, same words, children's program on Palestinian TV, and again, this is just one. Now, I want to show you also the interesting use of the word state. The Palestinians teach their people and children that actually there is a state of Palestine. They say that the state was declared in 1988 by Yasser Arafat, and very often you have examples like this where they point to the map of Israel and they define it as part of not just Palestine, but even the state of Palestine.
رحنا على بحيرة طبرية والبحر المية ويافا وحيفا وأريحة وجنين ونابلس.
يعني انتوا زايرين كثير اماكن مختلفه بفلسطين وهذا شيء كثير منيح. كثير حلو انه نزور دائما اماكن جديده بدولتنا فلسطين.
دولتنا فلسطين, our state of Palestine, not a geographic area, all of it being called the state of Palestine. And like I say, dozens and dozens of examples like this informal education of children on TV. Now, the maps that you see, in addition to what you saw from the school books, it's a very ongoing message to present all of Israel as part of Palestine. This is the official newspaper a few months ago. This is, by the way, when they were talking about unity between the Fatah and the Hamas, there were a whole series of cartoons that appeared in the official daily where the Hamas and the Fatah fighters were presented identically. The message being there is no difference. And here you had the two Fatah and Hamas fighters together, and between them, when they can unite and form the state of Palestine, this is the flag, they will succeed. That's the message coming through in this cartoon in the official paper. The official Palestinian websites have the same message of the Palestinian territories. In all the offices of the leaders, of the ministers, we see it. Here's one example, the head of the water authority. On the wall, they have a map that erases all of Israel and presented all as Palestine. In children's programming, children's groups, this is the logo of the Fatah's lion, cubs, and flowers. And here you see the map here as well. And here you have Mahmoud Abbas himself holding this up last year on television and in the newspaper, and it's called a stone model of the map of Palestine. That's the way it's presented. I want to just show you how frequent this is. I'm going to show you 5 maps that appeared all in the same week that he went to the UN asking for statehood. These are all from the week of September 24th, and you'll see it's a constant barrage of maps. And here you see it, for example, as they were requesting statehood. This was the message. This is the state. The flag wraps around all of Israel. The key is a sign of ownership. It's a very important Palestinian symbol. It's the key to our homes, they're saying, but it's also a sign of ownership. This is the message coming through. That very same day, this one appeared with all of Israeli cities presented as part of Palestine. Also, the official newspaper had a very interesting one. Here you have the word here appearing in Arabic, and then the continuation is, here we stand, stay, permanent, eternal. We have one goal, one, and to be, and we will, to be, and we will be. So that's the message. We are all one. Now, one of the interesting things that Palestinian Authority does in order to create this history is they erase Jewish history. We have had dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of examples of denial that there was a Jewish history in the land, denial that was a temple. We have many examples. Because they teach there was no Jewish history in the land, they also have to erase the foundations of Christianity as well, because Christianity certainly accepts that there was a Jewish presence. Jesus was a Judean. Now, I just want to show you what this forces the Palestinian Authority to do. This is the Mufti of the Palestinian Authority. Many examples like this. Jesus was a Palestinian who taught Islam. He didn't even teach Christianity. I'll show you in his words.
نتحدث عن سلسلة ممتدة من سيدنا آدم عليه السلام إلى سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. هذه السلسلة الممتدة تمثل دعوة التوحيد، تمثل رسالة الإسلام. الأنبياء كلهم أبناء دين واحد، وسيدنا عيسى عليه السلام ولد في هذه وعاش في هذه الأرض، معروف ولد في بيت لحم وهكذا، فهو فلسطيني بامتياز. فنحن نقدر سيدنا عيسى عليه السلام، نؤمن به عليه الصلاة والسلام كإيماننا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Just like Muhammad taught Islam, so Jesus taught Islam. So this is a necessity for them in order to continue the message that the Jews never had a history and there was no temple and there was no Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Now, one of the things that we have been finding many examples of, and this has been a major problem in the last few years, the Palestinian Authority has adopted the Hamas line that this is a religious war for Allah. And the term that they've been using over the last actually 2-3 years already is the term Rabat. You heard that it just appeared in the school books as well. We have heard it dozens and dozens of times from religious leaders, political leaders. Rabat means either defending or liberating land that is Islamic. So you could be defending it passively, you could be actively fighting it. And I want to show you, these are the words of the Palestinian Minister of Religion.
لقد كتب الله علينا في هذه البلاد المباركة، كتب علينا الرباط، نحن ملزمون به بأمر الله تبارك وتعالى. لا يظنن أحد أو يتوهم أن الرباط مجرد اختيار واصطفاء واجتباء وانتهى الأمر. إنه تكليف، والتكليف يقتضي المشقة ويقتضي أن ينفر الإنسان أن ينفر.
It requires a person to rush and fulfill this command. And what's so interesting about the comparison between a jihad and a ribat, a jihad is a conflict to liberate new land and bring new land under the realm of the Islam. A ribat is liberating land that's already said to be Islamic, and therefore the obligation is even higher. So that's why he's saying it requires the person to rush and fulfill this command. In another sermon, he actually said that the conflict as a ribat already appears in the Quran. He didn't say where the source is, of course it doesn't, but that's what he said in many, many times that he has talked about this, this religious war for Allah. So it's a very significant message. Palestinian Authority have been teaching continuously now that the war is a religious war. Now, 85% of Palestinians say religion plays an important role in their lives. 13.7% consider it somewhat important. Only 1% say religion is not important. So you have a religious establishment, a political establishment saying the war is a religious war, and you have a society where only 1% don't think that that's important. This is a critical, critical issue, because packaging the war as a religious war, when 99% of the people accept their religious teachings, is saying there can never be peace with Israel. And this is a tragic, tragic message that the Palestinian people leadership is giving to their people, and it's a message that will undermine any chance for peace unless this is changed in the very near future. Now, this is the first level of recognition in religious war. As you see, by itself, it's enough to prevent peace. But I want to show you they go beyond this. There's a whole level of demonization of Jews in Israel and the Palestinian Authority that's not land-based, that's not land-related. It's just demonizing literally for the sake of hate promotion. I'll give you some examples of this. April of this year, Israel imitates the Nazis. Israeli jailers attempt to imitate the German Nazis, who were the first to use prisoners as guinea pigs for testing weapons and deadly drugs which they developed. The Nazi German doctor Mengele was the most famous. Israel is copying Mengele. Of course, no basis in any reality for this, but this is a constant message of the Palestinians. This is the very famous and very common symbol, encouraging people to dispose of their garbage. It's a national symbol. You'll find it on bottles and packaging around the world. And the message is, throw your garbage in the garbage bin. Now, look what the Palestinian Authority or someone in the PA has done with this. This appeared part of a poster competition, and it was on a wall in the Red Crescent in the West Bank city, and they had all the different submissions for this competition, and they had no problem putting this one up as well. And here you see the person turns into a Palestinian with the Palestinian flag, and the garbage being disposed of is the Star of David, and the text under the picture is, keep your flag clean. So this is the sum total really of this message. The Jews are this terrible demonic force. If you want to clean up Palestine, you have to get rid of Jews, Israel message here. And like I say, this was put on the wall in the offices of the Red Crescent in the West Bank city. Now, these two messages, one of the demonization that Israel is this terrible force, spreading AIDS, acting like Nazis, poisoning Yasser Arafat, doing all these terrible things, together with the fact that Israel has no history here, it's a religious war, that the two items together are the grounds and the justification for violence as an act of self-defense and as an act of justice. If Israel has no right to be here, then it's justice to get them out. If Israel is killing us and poisoning us and spreading AIDS and spreading drugs, well, of course we have a right to fight against that. Even a good Palestinian, a decent person who is hearing this kind of demonization will feel he has a right to fight against Israel if all of this is true. And because of that, the Palestinian Authority today continues to glorify violence and promote violence. I'm going to show you some examples of this. This is a very significant video. This appeared on Palestinian TV. I won't play the whole video because it takes a minute or two, but some of the texts are, in Lod we are homes, in Ramla we are grenades, we traded bracelets for weapon, pulled the trigger, an explicit call for violence. Now, it's so significant. The band that played this song in a number of Palestinian cities and was broadcast on Palestinian TV 2 weeks after this broadcast, Mahmoud Abbas made a special announcement declaring this band to be a Palestinian national institution. Instead of distancing from a band that is calling for violence and essentially destruction of Israel through violence, he went and declared them a Palestinian national institution. I'm going to show you two interesting ones. This is August 14th of this year on official PA TV.
في دار فلسطين
attack the snake's head. The snake's head is Israel. We're going to do it with the rifle. What was so interesting is that just a few days later, they broadcast this twice in a row, and who was listening in the audience to hear the identical song? I won't play the whole song, I'll just jump to the end here so you'll see who was sitting in the audience. But the identical words. Here you see senior Palestinians clapping their hands to the song about the destruction of Israel. The snake said Abbasaki, Hanan Ashrawi, and other members, senior members. In fact, Abbas was in the audience as well. We don't see him clapping at this time, but he's sitting on the same thing. So this is the kind of messaging that is coming across in terms of demonization and violence. Now, one of the most significant means of promoting terror today is glorifying terror, especially glorifying terrorists. I want to show you what that means. And I'm going to give you a study of one person. We started in the beginning, we talked about some sporting events. I want to show you one person, how one particular person is turned into a Palestinian hero. The picture you see here is a woman named Dalal Mughrabi. She hijacked this bus in 1978. 37 civilians were killed. In terms of the numbers killed, it was the most lethal attack in Israel's history. A number of families lost 3 members. It was a tourist bus, 2 parents, and a child. It was a horrific attack. Now, and this was the only thing Dalal Mughrabi had ever done. Look how prominent she is in the Palestinian Authority. So first of all, last year they named a square for her in Ramallah. Abbas's advisor spoke earlier this year. Every one of us has tried to express his pride in Dalal Mughrabi. This past summer, there was a summer camp that had the group divided, and one of the groups was named Dalal Mughrabi, and this was sponsored by the Prime Minister, Salam Fayyad. There was another summer camp with the Dalal Mughrabi group. There was a school class this year, all of this in the last few months, named after Dalal Mughrabi. Mother's Day, according to the district governor in the PA, March is an important month. He says March is a special month because it has in it Mother's Day, International Women's Day, Almond Day, and the day of Dalal Mughrabi's operation. So these 4 things appear together as things that are positive and special. Mother's Day together with the Dalal Mughrabi operation. And this is the way it's presented. This is seen as a very significant. And all of these are other different schools named after her, etc. in Palestinian Authority buildings. Let me just go on ahead here to the results of this so we can have a little bit of time for questions. This was a poll, and this is so significant. This is a poll that was done by Pew just a few months ago, and they were discussing values in different countries that have Muslim populations. So they asked Muslims the following question. Some people think suicide bombing and other forms of violence against civilian targets are justified to defend Islam. Other people believe, no matter what the reason, this kind of violence is never justified. Do you personally feel it is justified or not? So, can you do suicide bombings against civilians to defend Islam? The highest positive response in the world was the Palestinian Authority with 68%, and this was, by the way, both West Bank and Gaza. Gaza a little bit higher at 70%, West Bank at 66%. Yes, suicide bombing. Now, look at the next closest. The next closest is Lebanon with only 35%, Egypt 28%, Israeli Arabs 20%, Jordanian all the way down. Now, how do we get this? How do we get to 68% of a Palestinian society supporting, defending the killing of civilians and suicide bombing? And the answer is everything you've just seen. When a society glorifies and honors and interviews the families of suicide bombers who are sitting 35 life sentences, as you just saw, it's giving a very clear message to the people that this is something honorable, it's something that can be done, something that should be done. And that's why the Palestinian Authority stands out in the Arab world today, unique in its overwhelming support for suicide terror to kill civilians. Now, the final item I want to show you here is something that really sums up the total message to its people. The total message of the Palestinian Authority to its people is that Israel has no right to exist. Israel must be fought. It's a ribat. It must be liberated. Israel has no right to exist. Many people say, well, why don't they just say it openly, that the goal is really the destruction of Israel? Well, they sometimes do. We have a number of examples every year where it's said. This was said just a month ago. Senior member of the Palestinian Authority, he's their representative in Lebanon, Fatah central figure, appears regularly on Palestinian television. Listen to what he said just a month ago.
التسوية قائمة على أساس حدود 4 جرام. وبالتالي لما بتكون التسوية على حدود 4 جرام الرئيس بيفهم واحنا بنفهم والكل بيعرف انه لا يمكن تحقيق الفكرة الملهمة او الهدف الكبير دفعة واحدة. اسرائيل اذا انسحبت من القدس، اسرائيل اذا خلعت المستوطنات 650,000 مستوطن، اسرائيل اذا زاحت الجدار، ايش اسرائيل بتكون؟ اسرائيل بتنتهي. فانا رايي اذا جيت تقول بدي اخلعها من الوجود، يا عيني يا عيني، وضع صعب، مش سياسه هاي، وما بتحكيش للعالم، احكيها بينك وبين نفسك كده.
Okay, you can't say it to the world, you can say it to yourself. If you look at all the material that Palestinian Media Watch has been presenting, if you look at our website, the dozens of examples, in addition to the few I've given you, of everything I've showed you, there are dozens of more examples. It is something that they are really saying explicitly. He says we can't say it out loud, we can only say it to ourselves. Clearly, this is a critical message. Let me just say one final message here. This message, when we present this in parliaments throughout Europe, has a very, very profound effect. Europeans want to support the Palestinian Authority because they believe that they are really interested in peace. This is not an issue for the most part of European governments supporting the PA against Israel because they want Israel to be destroyed. They don't. They just have a misperception. They have a perception of the Palestinian Authority, peaceful authority, wanting just two states to live in peace with Israel, recognizing Israel's existence, not inciting to hatred. This material, when they see it, has a profound effect. Spoke in Swedish Parliament, and 3 days later, the Swedish Liberal Party newspaper had a big headline, "Your tax dollars, Swedish tax dollars, are paying for Palestinian hate promotion and hate education." A whole article condemning the way Sweden. We've had similar success in Norwegian Parliament. We're speaking in Danish Parliament in the Foreign Affairs Committee in 2 weeks. We've had legislation recently in Dutch Parliament prohibiting Holland from funding the Palestinian Authority if they continue to glorify terrorists, which they are doing. So we're hoping that certainly in the future now there will be some action in that because the law has already passed Parliament. I'm telling this because you have to realize this material, you might have contacts with members of Parliament here or in different countries. Work with them, give them our material. All of our material appears on our website. And one final thing I'll tell you is that we are now producing this material as well in German. Many of the videos you saw now you can find on our YouTube site, which is over here, youtube.com, as well as a website of a Swiss organization, auditoronline.ch, where you can find these videos in German, and we're trying to get even more of them out there in German so that people can take this material, go to parliaments, go to the media, show them a different picture, something that they're not aware of until today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes for questions and answers, so if you would like to, yes, identify yourself.
Yeah,
you are.
My name is just a very simple question. What was the position of this Abbas Zaki who said so openly that you, of course, the extinction of Israel is the final goal, but you must not tell it to the world? Was he minor civil servant, or was he sort of influential? Yeah, this guy.
First of all, he's a member of the Fatah Central Committee. He's been for years been a leader. He's their official representative in Lebanon today as well. He also has a lot of prominence. Like you saw at that event where they were singing, he was sitting right there next to Mahmoud Abbas in the front row. He is a very prominent Palestinian. And when he's sitting next to, when he's telling you the president will agree with me on this, and you see him in the other picture sitting there right next to Abbas, he knows what he's saying when he says the president agrees on this.
Gives an idea that it's not just a low subordinate.
No, we wouldn't be showing it if it was an isolated person.
Yes.
Yeah. When I remember the situation in Germany 20 years ago, then we had the German Democratic Republic. We had a lot of propaganda there in the media. But since they had the ability to look at Western media, television especially, or get access to radio programs, they, after a time, they tend not to believe their own policies. So when I see the determination of how the Palestinian media try to support their point of view, and then there's a question in my heart, do they fear that their own people, that their own Palestinians start to doubt the policy of what we have just seen, And how is the possibility of the Palestinians, or in the areas, to receive programs from that are truth-oriented?
Okay, so the first question is a very good one. Do the Palestinians stop believing? One of the things that we follow is we like to listen to children when they speak. We like to listen to interviews with regular people. And what we're finding is that, like you saw, the children talk about, yes, they poisoned Yasser Arafat. I think certain extreme lies they might question, like Israel is stealing body parts. We've heard that dozens of times. I'm not sure Palestinians believe that. The totality of the message, though, sometimes even if you forget the details or don't accept the details, the demonization remains, and it's so consistent, it's so ongoing. Look, we see it also in the polls that 70%, 68% are willing to support suicide terror. You wouldn't be supporting them if Jews were good neighbors. It's because, so that's one of the reasons why we're very concerned. We believe these messages going through. I'll tell you something else very interesting. Israel Project did a poll 2 years in a row, and they found that the first year 60% and the second year 66% of Palestinians want to have 2 states as a temporary solution, which will continue on to one state of Palestine. 66% this past year. So again, that's indicating that this message of going along with the peace process to get some kind of a resolution, and then from there to continue, which the leadership, according to Abbas Zaki, has already adopted, and we see the people have accepted that same message. Successfully incorporated that same message to the people.
I want to also relate to this question. I don't think, I mean, this kind of education that we see is very deep. I don't think one needs a terrorist organization with this kind of education, because you have already terrorists everywhere all the time there. And I think the issue is very deep. It's really about 2 people thinking on one thing in a different way. While Israel believes within its education that it's a war or it's a conflict between 2 national movements, the Palestinians believe that it's not a conflict at all. It's occupation. The word occupation is very important and very deep, because the world believes this. Because even Israelis left is internalizing this idea of occupation. Now, we have to understand that this is what the Palestinian person, child, and leadership believes, that Israel is occupying. And in the Palestinian mind, there is so much confusion. I mean, if you were born a Palestinian child, you had no idea about historical sequence. No idea. You would think Muhammad was born before Abraham, or Rachel, the mother of Joseph, was born after Muhammad. I mean, you had the total confusion in your mind, really. Whatever book you would read will make no sense for you, because you had no good synapses in your mind to be able to read really anything scientific. So this is an abuse of children's mind that is going on from our perspective, from educational point of view. And for this is about your question about the people and the leadership. Okay. Now, I don't think Europe is aware of the usage of examples from German history, such as the Nazi history, of misusing it. I think German people can stop that and say, we don't want you to use anymore this, the Nazi as a metaphor for the Israelis. We oppose this. We don't want to give money to this kind of education. We don't agree that our leadership would agree to it whatever way, but this is something every German should stand for and have a stand on that. I mean, you have the right to say it, actually obliged to do it. And I would also say that Europe as a whole should not accept the discourse on occupation, because you see where it leads to. Because you really think, there is occupation. I mean, that's the narrative. You call it a narrative, but it's totally, there is no occupation there. there is Israel there, out of an agreement. It's like two human beings, you know, that decided to get married, and then, you know, and then one said, no, I don't want to get married. Or you tell two people, okay, you share this apartment, and one say, okay, and the other said, no, I don't want to share this apartment. And then after 60 years, you know, he starts to claim claims. So you have either you're going to get married, you don't want to get married. Okay, you want to have this apartment, you don't. You cannot go on like this because it breaks the way people communicate with each other.
Let me make two more final statements just about this. First of all, the word occupation, which is fascinating. If you check on our website, palwatch.org, you'll find under the section of non-recognition of Israel, you will find dozens and dozens of examples of the word occupation referring to all of Israel. Like you saw in the crossword puzzles, occupied Tel Aviv, you'll find every city in Israel literally called occupation, and the entire Israel called occupation. They talk about before the occupation in 1948, there is no recognition. That's the first thing. The second thing, which is what appears here, we send out bulletins a few times a week with new translations and new links to the new videos, which many, many organizations around the world use and pass on to media, pass on to members of government. You can write down our web address, write to us at pmw@palwatch.org. Ask us to put you on our list. Either if you have a card, you can give me the card as well, and I will give the card in and put your name on the list. This way you'll get all the latest material, and if you are in touch with any journalists, or if you're in touch with politicians, you can pass this material on. For example, the Nazi material, which we just released, is on our website. You can find it all there, and you can send it.
Yeah, this is something Germans can really, should really look at.
Yeah. Is it possible to get both presentations?
Yes, I'll give you my card.
That would be great.
Yes, I'll give anybody
Just write to us.
my card.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I want to thank you for sharing your insightful work with us. It's my hope that this knowledge can be used in Germany, in Europe, to make people think about it and to let people, responsible people in Germany.
Yeah, I just want, if you let me just may I say something. 3 weeks ago, I presented the findings on the Palestinian, because 3 weeks ago I didn't have all the Israeli findings. We were still working on it. So 3 weeks ago in Berlin, for the Federal German Ministry of Education, I was presenting the findings on the Palestinian textbooks, and I must say that they were very much surprised. They really didn't know. And this initiative started with just a German lady who saw on television, and she wrote to the ministry, to Professor Annette Chavan, that she insists that Annette Chavan would know what is in the Palestinian textbooks. And she's here. Her name is Doris. She's just a person like you and me. Okay?
All right. Please share business cards if you,
yes.
And